Chris was the only one I heard from sure. Dave sounded like he was still confused, even though I told him we were going to meet. So I wasn't sure whether he'd be here today or not. I haven't heard from Christy or any of the others I can't think of right off the top of my head. A couple things just for you to know. All right. And I'll say this to the others as well. The design of this is that if you're not coaching, or either you're not coaching or you're being coached, the design of it, if you want to get mentor coach credit, you really have to be here because you have to be at the 10 sessions. If you're not at a session, it works out okay in that what you'll have to do is meet with me separately to do a coaching session where you'll have to coach me, kind of like Jim, like you had to do the other day. There's Javon.
Right.
So I've got to make sure that everybody clarifies that. That's not something I'm making up. That's something in order to get the mentor coaching credit that we've got to do. Now I know there's the feeling of, well, I'm not doing it. Well, yes, you are doing something. You're listening and you're observing, and that's an important part of the process. For those who are not getting credit, we still love you to participate. Like Eric's already had credit and that kind of thing. We still love you. I mean, we would still love for you to participate with us. But there's not really any, what am I looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? If you do miss one or that kind of thing, we just miss your presence more than anything else. But for those of us who are wanting the credit, the importance of being here at these meetings is important, if that makes sense. So I'll get that word out. Hopefully I'll try to get that clarified for those who are trying to get mentor coaching credit, and we'll work from there. Summer is going to be a tough time. I'll just go ahead and tell you that, just because of the nature of what? Summer, and so we'll work through all those pieces. Eric, well, I shouldn't say, I'll go ahead and say Eric. Eric made an excellent suggestion today, and you will get an email from me after this is over, besides just, the video and the other kinds of stuff with this, asking for permission to share both your email and asking you to share your contact phone number that we can put together on a list and share with each other, just for each other. I'm not going to send it to the whole world, but just for each other, so that in case you need to get in touch with each other either by email or by phone number, you'll have that available to you between sessions for the purpose of getting in touch for coaching and some other kinds of stuff like that. So I think that was an excellent suggestion. So I'll send it. Probably what I will do is prepare the list and tell you, if I have a phone number for you, here's the number I have. And you can tell me whether it needs to be changed or not. If I don't have it, you can either text it to me or email it to me, one or the other, and I'll get it all put together, and I'll make sure everybody has it. Okay. All right. I've been teaching the last 3 days, so my mind's a little bit in all kind of places. So I'm just going to continue the spirit of the teaching thing in terms of just having fun with this session that we have together. 6 after 2, we want to get started by 10 after. Anything coming up? I mean, any questions, anything that you wonder about before we kind of get going?
Ken, I was going to ask, is this training part of the 60 hours that we need of training?
Yeah. Now this is where I'm really going to confuse you. Okay. All right.
Won't take much.
No, I'm not going to try not to, but let me just, I am trying to accomplish 2 things if you want it for this.
Right.
What we do on Wednesdays is specifically for mentor group, mentor, what am I trying to say? Mentor coaching certification. So the only thing you really get out of our time together on Wednesdays is the mentor coaching hours that you need, the 10 hours of mentor coaching. So if, like, Jim, you're coaching Herbert today, you can't use this. You can't put this on your coaching sheet for coaching hours, because it's considered mentor group coach training.
Right.
What we're trying to do, the in-between time where I'm partnering you up with somebody, that's what you can include on your
log.
Yeah, your 60 hours. So hopefully by the time we're through this kind of thing, you've at least got 10 more hours, 10 more logged hours of coaching that you can use for your for that log. Yeah, I keep trying to find for a better word than log, but that's what it is for those 60 hours. No, 100 hours. Wait a minute. Now you've got me confused.
The section I'm referring to is training.
Training. Yes. Okay. The answer to that is even another. No, this has nothing to do with the training. Okay. This only has to do with mentor group. Well, mentor coaching. All right. And that's all this is. There's no training component of this.
Gotcha.
To do the training component, you have to participate in a class structure.
Okay.
And that kind of thing.
Ken, if it helps, I know that there's several churches around the state that offer English as a second language training.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
I need that today. It started this way. We have our grandson with us today.
So you haven't slept.
Had him last night, and we took him to the baseball game, to the game at the Squirrels last night, and so he's had a lot of energy, and I loved having him around, but my mind's not totally engaged with some of the things that needs to be engaged. And you should have been a part of the training today. You know, getting started at 8:30 this morning was a real trip, you know, in terms of things. But all right, let's get going to what we've come for, and we're going to let Jim coach Herbert for. I've got 2:10, so we're going to give you till about 2:40, Jim.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
If you finish up before that, that's fine. But at 2:40, I'll come back on, and we'll do some processing of it and that kind of thing. All right.
And I apologize for my voice. I went to an Orioles game last night with some college buddies, and my
that's even worse than me, because I've been fighting a voice all day today too.
I know it. So you just be patient, and hopefully my signal will hold on. So, yep.
Well, yeah, and you know, Herbert, and you guys, and a great thing even in the coaching is to talk about that a little bit. You know, about some of the things that you're dealing with, even maybe technology and some of that kind of thing. So we'll let you go to it, and we'll get out of the way.
Okay. Well, hello, Herbert. It's great to see you again.
Good seeing you. Good seeing you.
Yes, sir. When we're able to catch up a little bit before the session began, and I'm just glad that you've been able to carve out some time to have a conversation today. And as always, even though I believe we know it, you know, what we say today between one another will be in confidence, and I have no need and will not share it with anyone else. And also, there are some other coaches that are listening, and for training purposes, educational purposes, and we are being recorded. So I wanted you to be aware of all of that as we talk today.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Well, what can we focus on today?
Well, I've given some thought to what to be coached about today, and one of the things I would focus on today is, as in pastoring the congregation to celebrate 28 years as pastor, but also looking at how I continue to develop leaders within the congregation, At times, I feel like our bench is getting thinner than it used to be, and persons aren't as available. And I know it's not a uniquely Mount Tabor thing, but it's happening everywhere where persons are not as available as they used to be. So I'm just looking at some strategies on ways that we can develop additional leaders within the congregation to serve.
Okay, and I heard you mention two things there. One, you're celebrating your 28th anniversary. Congratulations. That's a long tenure. But it seemed like you dealt more on the area of how do I discover and train new volunteers?
Exactly.
Would that be a place to focus today?
Yes, that's the focus place.
Okay. Well, as you have been thinking about that, what challenges do you see in discovering and training volunteers in your church?
Some of the challenges, historically, we've had a deeper bench, meaning that persons were present, they were amenable to equipping and training. And in recent days, that's not so much. And so, I mean, life has gotten in the way for a lot of people, which has impacted our scheduling and our planning. Deaths have taken place, illnesses have taken place. And the reality is that when you make a commitment in church, it requires work. And in these days, people are stretched so much that they don't really want to sign on for something else. So I'm kind of looking at how we can, try to figure that out, work through that. But those are some of the obstacles that we see, just timing, making those levels of commitment, because of personal schedules and stretching.
Right. I hear you. And, being a pastor, I can identify with that, probably universal in a lot of places.
Yeah.
What have you been trying in the past to recruit volunteers and train them? What is
previously what worked for us, we would engage in not only Bible studies, but specific discipleship intensive courses, similar to like the Master Life, Experiencing God, those types of courses that were very focused and equipping. And from that, we were able to get people and recruit them and nurture them and to grow them so that when we needed them to serve in leadership, they were ready. Not so much, getting folks ready now. It's been a little more challenging. We're still not meeting in person for classes. All of that is done remotely on Zoom. We are meeting in person for hybrid worship. So again, all of our training opportunities are, through Zoom. I will say that we're able to, this semester, we try to divide our church into semesters, that we were able to put a class together finally. So we actually have a class. The unfortunate part is that we have two deacons in the deacon, a minister, or two ministers, and one lay person. And again, so if you're trying to groom persons to serving as deacons, well, they're already there, so they're not really candidates for leadership because they're already serving.
Right. So what is, you mentioned challenges and hurdles. What today do you see as your biggest hurdle in getting something new started?
Probably the capacity of the potential candidates. Capacity, whether they're able to handle some of the responsibilities that need to be handled. That's been challenging. We were fortunate. We've been trying to get a new treasurer for the past 2 years, and no one wanted to touch it. We recently found someone who said, "Oh yes, I'll be glad to serve," and so that was like, "Thank you." But that's been a 2-year process of trying to groom that person, get them prepared. But it's capacity, because we realized that before we had persons who had capacity that you could give them assignments and they were able to actually do them. Now we have many that are not. They're just not there yet. And so the challenge becomes how we get them to have the capacity, the ability to be able to receive the training and equipping that is needed for the assignments.
Have there been any ideas that have floated through your mind, or you've put to paper that you're thinking about trying to change this system that you're seeing?
Ideas I've had, generally we would make a general announcement, that hasn't worked so well. So we've literally been going to persons, making personal invitations and, to assess their interest or availability in serving. So we're trying from general announcements to personal to networking, like if, telling a current leader to try to recruit their replacement, so we're trying all of the above right now.
Right. Have you seen any of your new efforts or ideas bear fruit? Anything working?
Not to the extent that we desire. I am grateful that we do have, we did bring on 2 new trustees, persons who have been working faithfully, and that has worked well. We do have 2 persons in training for deacons now, and that has worked well. The goal was to get like 6, but we had 2, so we're going with the 2 that we had ready. So that's been a very bright spot. We're just starting where we can, and like I said, we didn't get the numbers that we needed, but we didn't want to hold up the process waiting for the numbers. We decided to go with what we had and then work on the rest later. So those bright spots were there. The numbers weren't, but the bright spots that we were able to directly recruit, some persons to serve.
Well, I would encourage you first. I mean, I've heard you say you have recruited some pretty significant positions, working with the treasurer, gotten some trustees, some deacons to agree. And how could these new people that have agreed to serve help in developing some ideas for recruiting other people?
Great question. And it's funny because one of the persons that said no to us, because of their schedule, and I shared with them, I said, you realize you're already doing the work. I said, we don't normally ask people that aren't doing the work. We normally ask people who are doing the work. And and they said, I just don't think I can do it. I said, you're already doing it. But to answer your question, I think seeing these 2 that are going forth, particularly in the deacons training now, their presence will probably inspire some others, because part of our goal was also making sure that we're not sticking to just one generation. We want to expand generational involvement. We even want young folks, we want to let them know that you have a place. So I'm hoping that that their presence being there will be an inspiration to others to say yes, or at least to try to make themselves available.
Okay. When you say their presence there, am I hearing you say their presence in working with you to develop some new ideas and recruiting new people?
Absolutely. And again, particularly when I look at these 2 individuals, they are full of ideas. They are also fully engaged in the life of the church. So again, I'm sure that when asked, that they'll be able to help to cultivate some other relationships.
What ideas or plan do you have to begin involving these new volunteers to meet with you in your planning? Have you taken any steps in that?
Great question. Typically, when we train deacons, as an example, it's a very extensive, long process that they go through a lot of classroom with me. We have shortened that process.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
and for instance, they normally would not attend a deacon meeting until maybe 6 months after they've been in training.
Wow. Mhm.
Well, they'll be attending a deacon meeting next week, and they've only been in training for about a month. And along with that, that's going to immerse them quicker, because as we also engage into the summer months when we don't meet, we're going to put them, involve them and engage them in some of the activities. In fact, the question that they asked me last night, well, when we attend the meeting, are we just to be quiet? And we're like, oh no, you don't get to be quiet. We're going to need your ideas. We're going to need your involvement right now, simply because they already have a relationship with the church. It's not like they're new to the church. And so we're not, you don't have to be tenured to be able to have a voice, if I can put it that way.
Right, right. So you're going to be doing some training with these new volunteers, not as extensive.
Exactly.
So
Oh yeah, it's going to be extensive. It's just going to be on the job also.
on the job as well.
Exactly.
Have you looked at rewriting or rethinking then what you're going to include in the training?
Oh yes, yes, yeah. The process. We're doing it all by Zoom now, and we used to use a lot of books and references in classroom, and now we're doing our sessions on Zoom with PowerPoints, and the engagement level is tremendous. I mean, in fact, one sent me a note last night. That was really good. We had, I was like, most folks don't say that after training, but so the interaction and the feedback and the participation levels have been really good, that it's really serving as a model for what we can do in some other areas in the future. So I'm taking some mental notes on what we're doing in this and modifying how we can do it in some other instances.
Right. What could you include in the training that you're developing to allow your new leaders to help find other leaders?
Probably a good way, as you've asked that question, one question we could ask them is, what made them say yes?
Mm-hmm.
What made them be available, how they were able to qualify for the position, even though, we've shared with them why they were qualified, but what motivated them. So we could ask that of them to get an understanding of how others may be thinking and processing, and what some of the considerations, because one particularly took a long time to respond and then said yes. And so even inquiring of some of the things that they were considering in their response might help us to understand some of the hesitations in others.
Okay.
So that's one way.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's good thinking. That's good thinking. It sounds like you're thinking about revamping this training method anyway. What other ways could your new deacons, your new trustees, your new treasurer help you in recruiting newer, younger, different volunteers for the other areas that you need?
The other thing I would say is what was told me of my predecessor when I was on staff at the church, and his words to me were, replicate yourself. And that can be a charge I can also issue to them, to replicate themselves, to find someone else to mentor, to encourage, to nurture, maybe not specifically for their role, but for availability to serve within the church in some capacity. And so as they are assigned to connect with the congregation, particularly as deacons, and they're part of our congregational care team, as they get to know persons, they can also be part of the recruiting, assessment and recruiting of additional persons to lead. So to to request some intentionality in their relationship building, for future leaders.
Okay. And I guess again, have you thought of a time where you can meet with them and, discuss kind of those expectations that you have in their role as a leader to help discover and mentor other leaders?
Well, we are in ongoing training now, and again, we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks. And so as a part of those summary sessions that we have, those expectations can be shared at that time.
Okay.
So literally that's something that would happen before the month is out.
Okay. So you're saying that could be maybe a part of the training time
Exactly.
as well, clarifying some of the expectations you have with them
Right.
in their leadership role.
Mhm.
Well, you've mentioned some wonderful starter points of ideas.
Mhm.
As you glance at those or think about those, what ideas have we talked about today? You've talked about today that would help you in starting to maybe find new volunteers and recruit and train.
Mhm. Utilizing the persons that we currently have, those that said yes, to get an understanding of why they responded, and also utilizing those persons to be instrumental in replicating themselves and recruiting, others to serve, not necessarily in their capacity, but at least in some leadership capacity that they can become candidates, within the congregation. Because I recognize that their role in particular is to develop those relationships. The pastor alone cannot do it all. And so they share that responsibility in caring for the congregation. A part of caring for the congregation is making sure we have, qualified leaders. And so they can be very instrumental in assisting in that process.
Well, what could be some next steps that
Okay, I think you're breaking up. I think it's
froze, and it might be me. I'm sorry, I'll be back.
okay. Yeah, you're back now.
I'm sorry. I said, what are some next steps?
Okay. I'm thinking, I think you're frozen again. I think some next steps, let's see. Probably documenting, what's going on, documenting the process. And I'm writing these down as I'm talking. And updating training process, training materials, and including the expectations. Right.
Is he back with you yet?
No, he's still frozen.
Oh, he's really frozen.
Okay, I think he just dropped off.
He dropped. Yeah, he dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if he comes back and see if he wants to end it in some way. And if not, we'll just hopefully he can come back and we can talk about it a little bit. But keep going with your thoughts there, Herbert, in terms of you're talking about documenting the process and some of those kind of things. Here he is.
There he is.
You're on mute.
Herbert, I apologize. I'm having a little technical difficulties here.
And those are the things we get used to in the Zoom world.
In the Zoom world. And I heard you saying maybe documenting some next steps that you would want to do.
Right. You're documenting some next steps, updating the training, and including expectations, as you're serving in these roles, just writing those things down, making sure that they're written down so that they're able to be followed. Because without writing them down, they slip their mind very quickly.
They do mind, I know. Yes,
even though at the moment we don't think they will, they do.
Right. Right. Yeah. So clarifying some of the decisions you made, making a goal to include them in your training
Mhm.
and when you're going to start. Yeah. Do you have anybody else on your staff or a colleague or that could help you, that you could share this with to hold you accountable to maybe getting some of this done?
Absolutely. We have persons in our spiritual formation, on our spiritual formation team. But again, one of the things I say to all of our leaders is to replicate themselves.
Mhm.
And so, and in fact, one group that we've just been meeting with, I've even asked them to, I said, these are some of the things we're looking at. I said, I need you to remind me of what I'm saying so that we don't forget it. You know, so I've asked them of a small group of persons that we've been working on some changes, some long-term changes.
Right.
And we've talked a lot about a lot of things. And I've asked them to remind me from time to time so that we don't get too far and not have done anything. So.
All right. Well, good. It sounds like you have a group you could share, what your plan is, what some of your goals are,
Yeah.
and they could remind you or keep you on pace for that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and again, work alongside it to make sure that we achieve these goals.
Well, that sounds really good. I think you've processed and thought about this a lot, and I've heard some definite goals that you have, some steps that you want to take. How are you feeling right now about moving forward with some of this?
I'm feeling actually really good because we just celebrated as a church 150 years.
Wow.
And we had a wonderful celebration this past weekend, and we have a ministry leaders meeting on Saturday. So I get an opportunity not only to celebrate, to remind us of our celebration, but also to remind us that we're not finished yet, that there's still some work ahead of us that needs to be done. And particularly, not only with the overall mission of the church, but also in the development of leaders. So I'm excited that, that we're having this conversation now, because Saturday I have an opportunity to kind of share some things with our other leaders.
Good news. Well, I'll be excited to hear next time we talk how that meeting went and your celebration is going, and how some of these new ideas and steps will maybe help answer some of these questions and some of this issue that you're really focused on today. And yeah, I look forward to that. And it's been great to talk with you.
Well, this has been very helpful, just being able to kind of process and kind of look for some solutions that were present that I had not considered before. So this has been extremely helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Herbert. I look forward to being with you again.
All right now. Thank you.
All right. Okay. I think I'm a little ahead of schedule, but
Yeah, you did. I mean, you caught me off guard, in terms of that. So I really wasn't doing anything else. I just didn't have my mute button off and all that kind of stuff. So, so let's all come back together and we'll talk a little bit about the process. Thanks, guys, for just letting us listen in and hear the conversation and that kind of thing. Jim, what was your feeling about the coaching and what was going on in you as you were kind of going through this process?
Well, I could certainly identify with where Herbert was. We have the same issues in our congregation, and I felt like I was really trying to listen and just think of some questions to get him thinking about some possibilities or ideas that he may have already had and just needed to flesh out a little bit. And I mean, that was kind of my goal.
Yeah. Well, listen, from an immediate standpoint, the way that you worked with him to get, at the beginning, especially the agreement and the understanding of what we're doing together, you did that very, very well. And, you know, as y'all are going to get tired of hearing me saying, even, you know, for that recording, being reminded about the confidentiality and some of those kind of things is an important thing that ICF is looking for in that process. And you did that well. You know, and just catching up and helping him realize the things that you had to do. And then you did a good segue into so what do you want to work on today, or what do you want to focus on today? What was stated well, and then you let him just have a chance to do that. So, you know, some of the highlights to me were the way that you just listened well, you engaged him well, you got good agreement with him, and I could tell that you were engaged with what he was dealing with. Now, and that was a strong thing. Now, let me tell you a challenge with that too.
Okay.
All right. The challenge with that, and this is not just for you, this is for any of us. The challenge for it is when you identify so well with a challenge, you take the challenge on and you want to help them solve it.
Okay.
Now, almost to the point where you accidentally could become a consultant rather than staying in the coach mode.
Mhm.
Because if he solves this, that might help you think of ways you can solve this, you know, with your own thing. I get hooked all the time, you know, in conversations with pastors and leaders, because I hear them going through things and I think, oh man, yeah, let's get this solved, you know, and that kind of thing. And there were one or two times you were doing a great job listening, but I almost felt like you were working too hard. And what I mean by that is you were trying to help him find the solution, even giving him some ideas rather than just kind of let the flow go. Now, it wasn't, now let me make sure all of you hear this. It wasn't that I would mark something terrible about the conversation. It's just a recognition that sometimes what happens when we get into it and we're familiar with a topic that the person is working on, what we have, either the ideas we have start coming out through the questions that we raise rather than just letting them come out of the person themselves. Does that make sense? What I'm saying there, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be one of those things with where somebody would just say, well, no, I'm going to mark this off and you're not going to be approved for an ACC. But it's one of those things that you just want to be aware of.
Yeah, well, I think I was having more difficulty thinking of a question to letting Herbert talk more about his situation.
Now, and this is what I'm saying. That's why I said I think you were working really hard.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the dangers we all have as coaches is we work so hard that we get confused about what we should ask and what we shouldn't have, because just I'm not sure. What do I say next? You know, what question do I ask next? How do I help him move forward with this? You know, and other kinds of things like that. And
a lot about that. I was
and listen, I feel it when I've been doing this almost 2,000 hours now, and I still feel the pressure of that at times. You know, that that you do it. One of the things that I have started doing more is if I find myself in that situation, I just let a little bit more silence occur. And in that silence, let that silence sit there for a minute. And then finally, if I can't really even think anything else to say, I just say something to the effect of, what are you feeling right now? You know, and you might even acknowledge your own frustration. You know what? I'm not sure what to ask you next. What would you ask next? You know,
Wow.
Because they probably have some ideas going on in their head because they've been processing things. Now, here's the ingredient with that one. If you use that a lot, they're going to say, why do I paying you to coach me? You know, or that kind of thing.
Right.
But all I'm saying is some of those moments when you're really feeling that sense of not being sure, one of the best things to do is take a step back and maybe observe. Maybe it's something you observe or something you hear that you just wonder about, or, and I think what you could, Todd Bolsinger talks about it. Ronald Heifetz from Harvard talked a lot about it in his book, Leadership on the Line, and some other kinds of things like that. He talks about this idea of getting up on the balcony and looking down.
Right.
All of y'all have heard that kind of language.
Mhm.
Sometimes what you may want to do as a coach, part of that taking a deep breath and letting a silence occur, is just get up on the balcony. What did you observe? Because when you are down on the floor, what you're dealing with is, what are you hearing?
Mhm.
So just let it stay there, and let the silence occur. Now, will there be uncomfortableness? Yeah, silence can create that at times, but a little uncomfortableness is not bad. One other, and again, I don't even mean that really as a real big criticism, just something to think about. If you're feeling a sense of being stuck or something like that about what to ask next. Herbert, how are you feeling about it? I hadn't asked you yet. How are you feeling about the coaching and some of those kind of things?
Yeah, he helped me to process some things, as I've been kind of wrestling with that. And he forced me to remember some things that I had been told, as a resource. So his questions helped me to recall, replicating yourself, to utilize the resources I have available,
Yeah.
And I'd not thought about that, but I mean, I have these persons here who said yes. Well, why did they say yes? So his questions helped me to kind of reflect on that. And so that was really helpful. Even as we've been revamping, again, our process is, we used to do it this way, but we're doing it this way. And I've told him, I said, well, this is what we used to do. I said, everything's new now, and because it's new, we have some freedoms. And I even said to the congregation, I said, thank y'all for the past 2 years, we've been experimenting, we've been trying things, and we're trying to figure out what we're doing, and we really don't know what we're doing. So thank you for at least going along with us, and so that's giving a certain amount of liberty and freedom to try some things. And his questions helped me to explore that even further.
And the value, Jim, that I want you to see and hear in that is, what you were doing is you were allowing him to process. You were feeling the pressure of having to do some things, but even by the things you asked, remember, it's about what that person's processing, not about what you're processing as a coach. And with the things that you were asking, you were helping him process some of those things. And so that's a good thing. There probably are 2 or 3 different ways this coaching call could have gone, to be honest. In fact, that's true for just about every call, because we could have gone in a way of, even for Herbert, even talking about, so what's the real challenge here for you? And really gotten personal about, things are changing. This is new. What is that creating in you, and that kind of thing. Herbert may not even been ready for that, but you could have gone there in terms of things.
That question would have, I feel like, what is a deal or no deal, when Howie's doing at the end? Well, what number would you? Because that question, even I was like, wow, that's an interesting question. Even at serving 28 years, I don't anticipate serving another 28 years.
Yeah.
And so
that's right.
What does legacy start looking like as far as leadership and those types of things? So yeah,
this is something I picked up from Michael Bungay Stanier. Some of you know, he wrote The Coaching Habit and some of that kind of stuff. One of the places you started, Jim, or maybe Herbert even mentioned it, is talking about the challenges of the present time, and that kind of thing.
Right.
And you, as you're spending time with challenges, process that for a little while. So what are some of these challenges that you're really feeling? You ended up focusing on one, which was fine. That's where he was ready to focus. But sometimes several may come up. or even one or two. But the real thing that you can get to is if you take that, what are the challenges, and then take it personal. So what is the real challenge for you?
Mhm.
Not
And
for
I
the
thought-
church,
Right.
not for the kingdom, though it's all going to tie in there, but what's the real challenge for you?
Right. And I thought about that, and I guess, and that's usually, I think, where I'm naturally going to go in
Yeah.
asking questions, but I didn't know what is the line between coaching and getting into more
Counseling.
consulting, but counseling.
Yeah. And the real ingredient there is where it stays away from the counseling is if you're going into the whatever this real challenge is for him, if it's a counseling issue, you'll pick up on it
Mhm.
because it's something that he doesn't have a clear understanding of, and something that needs to be you need to diagnose it a little bit and play around with it a little bit. But if it's just a personal issue, so you can get into personal issues without getting into counseling. For example, now this is not Herbert. Let's just talk about if we had been dealing with things and talking about challenges and that kind of thing, and Herbert's talking about that kind of thing, and I am where I'm in my life, and you ask me that question, what's the real challenge for you in this? Part of what I might say is, well, I'm at the very end of my ministry career, and I don't know what to do next. Now, is that a counseling question?
That's more of a coaching question.
It's more of a coaching question because the next thing you ask me is, so what do you want to do with that?
Right. What do you want to do next?
Yeah. Where do you want to, let's continue that conversation in terms of, of exploring the kind of issue that's around it or that kind of thing. But what I'm still thinking of is how I'm going to move forward. I'm not, well, I got to go back and, all this other kinds of stuff. I'm still thinking about moving forward. So when you're, now this is especially getting further than some of you are thinking right now, but when you really get into the PCC level and the MCC level, what they're going to want to know is that you're helping the person think about change inside themselves, not just the organization they're working with or some other kinds of things like that. They're going to want to see you are helping that person process their own personal life and change and that kind of thing. Jim, again, it wasn't wrong. It's just another approach that you could take would be to take it more on that personal level is all I'm trying to point out in that.
No, I don't hear it that way. And that's, I'm glad you said that, because that's probably more the direction I want to be as a coach and use some of the Bowen theory and
Sure.
self-differentiation type of questions. But that answer helps answer a question, is that out of bounds or not?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing to think about. There's a difference between transactional change and transformational change.
Right.
Transactional change is when I can just change a few of those as hyphens and some of the other stuff, just technical things in my life I can change. I can rewrite the book. I can rewrite the guidelines. I can update the training, all the other kinds of things. Transformational change is when you're starting to look at, what do I need to change about my own journey that makes me rethink the whole thing sometimes, or some other kind of things like that. And that's really moving in, that's a deeper type of change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would use the term, because I knew everybody, this was, kind of a mentor coaching. I think I went the safer route.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, and probably, now let me make another comment about that. If your relationship is strong with that person, from the sense of you built up over time, you built trust, you built some of the other kind of things, it's easier to get into the deeper transformational change. You know, when you are just working with one person one time or something like that. And even for me as somebody being coached, if you're just coaching me one time, I'm probably going to stay up here. I'm not going to go deep into my journey.
Right.
But it is one of those things to just kind of think about in terms of even the kinds of things that we can ask. If I said, what is the real challenge for you? He may still say, well, I just need to think about how I can rewrite these things. Now that tells me what? He's still on a technical level. I can't force him into that deep level. I could make a comment about that might make him get there. But for our conversation, it may be that he still wants to be on that transactional kind of, I just want to make some technical changes in the way I do some things or some other kinds of stuff like that. But if I ask the question, what am I doing? I'm letting him decide where he wants to go with the change. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, one of the things, if I'm having a long-term relationship with a coachee and all they ever want to deal with is transactional change, I feel a sense of responsibility to the client to say, let's talk about something that's going to be a hard subject to talk about, but let's think about something together. In this whole relationship that we have had, you have done some excellent work, and you've done some excellent work around the changes that needed to be made in your position or in your other kinds of things like that. But I sense there's a nervousness about dealing with some deeper things.
This is really helpful because
I'm just thinking out loud, but
that's helpful because as I'm thinking about it, so our role is to coach the person as opposed to coaching what the person does, or
you remember the language we used some with that book that came out last year, coach the person, not the problem.
Okay.
All right. In some ways, though you were doing a good job with this and you were coaching him, in some ways, in a transactional kind of thing, a lot of times you're coaching the problem.
Right. Hoping
so where you want to go deeper is when you can take the coach deeper, you're getting into coaching the person. What's difficult about this for you? You know, you were doing good at the end of even helping him process some of those kinds of things in terms of documenting the process. Who can you help get you to help you and some of those kind of things were all good kind of conversations, things to have. But part of the deeper part of this is, what is this doing to you to have to redo this? What is this doing to you that you can't get volunteers as easily as you used to?
Yeah.
Because somebody might say, I just don't think I got it anymore. Now, Herbert's not going to think that, but somebody else might say that. Somebody else might say, it's time to let go, you know, and you're having to work on some other issues there. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it's all about where they want to go, not where you want it to go.
Yeah. And I think for me, I think that's who I am. I think I hope I wouldn't lean to go that way too soon.
Yeah, and I hope that's helping all of you to think about some of these issues.
Yeah.
I'm specifically talking in Jim's kind of setting, but I hope all of you can see this about your coaching with other people, to think of it in terms of how am I really going to coach the person here to help them work through whatever is going on, you know, and not just the problem. I talk to a lot of people who tell me, well, we have a discipleship problem. Yeah, we do. We do have a discipleship problem. But think about it. A lot of times the discipleship problem is a surface issue that needs to go deeper and that kind of thing. So that's all I'm saying in that. Jim, I'll do the same thing for you. Yeah, we've all got, thank you, Christy, and I've got to go too. I'm sorry I get carried away with some of these discussions, but I am trying to help you learn something in these and not just some of the other kind of stuff. Any last comments from anybody else? that you wonder, things you want to say to Jim before we take this off?
This was really helpful again. He was right where I was really looking at some processes, some technical stuff, and he really helped
I
me
thought you were.
process it.
Yeah, that's
And,
where I thought he did well with what he was doing. So I hope you hear that, Jim, in these comments, that they're not meant to
Yes.
to draw away from what you're doing. It's just trying to say, here, how could you take it deeper? You know,
Sure,
when the
sure.
person's ready, and some of those kind of things.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Good conversation. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
What I will do, Jim and Herbert, the others of you haven't seen this yet. I did this with Christy last week or 2 weeks ago. I've got a new software that lets me make a transcription of the coaching session. And what I will do is put it in the transcription service and then make follow-up conversation with you about, for example, 2 or 3 times again, you use closed-in questions. Have you thought about, have you, that's one of those things you really want to kind of be aware of. And so, but that'll show up when I'm working through the transcript and that kind of thing.
Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
So in 2 weeks, we'll try this again.
That's right.
No. And Herbert, do we have you coaching next time?
Yes, I'll be coaching Eric.
Eric.
Chris.
Chris, okay.
Chris. Mhm.
Eric, I think something must have taken place with his wife. And if y'all, not everybody may be aware of this, but his wife had a stroke 2 or 3 years ago, and it's created health challenges, of course, for her, but also for him. And I have a feeling that probably something happened that he had to go take care of.
Mhm.
So he sent his regrets in the chat for us and that kind of thing. But I know he'll carry forward the best he can. So
Yes, indeed.
thanks to all of you.
Thank you. Now.
All right. We'll touch base again. I'll send you the note about the emails, the phone numbers, all that kind of stuff, and we'll get everything continuing to work forward. All right.
Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.